Hi friends, it's Helen and I'm back with another episode of Mental Health Monday, and today I am talking about antidepressants and asking for help. So I hope you guys find this video helpful and let's get started. So I have a couple disclaimers. One, I am not a medical professional, so everything that I'm talking about like with antidepressants and medication, I only know from personal experience, by what Google has told me, and by my mom's like pharmacology book that I would read, for fun, and if I wanted to know about like the medications that I could have gotten put on versus getting switched to, and just stuff like that. So that's all. That's the extent of my medical knowledge, is what Google and that pharmacology book and what my doctors tell me. So there's that. And my other disclaimer is, just because one antidepressant didn't work for me doesn't mean it won't work for you. Just because one worked for me doesn't mean it'll work for you. Everyone's brain chemistry and all that is different, so everyone reacts to drugs and medication like that differently. That being said, let's get started. So, last year about this time is when I started taking medication. It kind of took a while to convince my family that I wanted to go seek medical help for depression and anxiety and panic disorder. So I made an appointment with just the general doctor, because I thought that would be the best way to go about it. Plus I kind of needed that yearly physical regardless. So then, knowing that I wasn't going to physically be able to tell the doctor what was going on, I wrote everything down. So I wrote out my panic attack symptoms. I wrote out talking about anxiety. I wrote about how I would feel my moods. And I wrote about having suicidal thoughts and thinking that, life would be better off without me. So that was really hard to write down, but then I folded it up and kept it hidden in my purse so no one could find it, because I didn't want anyone to find it and read it without a doctor knowing about it first. So then the day of my doctor's appointment comes, and I'm nervous and terrified because I have no idea what's going to happen. My biggest fear at that time was thinking that she was just going to go, "Oh, that's normal, everyone deals with it, there's nothing wrong with you." Which I was terrified for, but clearly that's not how it goes. My doctors are really great people. So I wrote some notes down on this lovely piece of paper. So I went to the appointment, and she went through the physical, asked all the awkward questions that they have to ask you, and she was like, "Okay, do you have any questions?" So I started talking about being anxious, and I started crying, and I just gave her the note, and she read it, and she was like, "Oh my goodness, we have to do something about this." So she wrote me a prescription for Zoloft 50 milligrams and Klonopin. And I never ended up taking Klonopin, so I can't tell you how that went. So, but I took the Zoloft, and then she gave me 2 phone numbers for different psychiatrists that were under my insurance. So then I made an appointment with one of them, and I had to go back after 2 weeks for the Zoloft, after taking the Zoloft, because she wanted to just see how I was reacting to the side effects, which we'll get into right now. So that night, I remember I went out and I was talking to one of my friends. It was just to talk, because I was like, I was like, I don't know what to do. I just needed to tell someone about it. Just not someone from my family, someone else, a third party person. So that happened, and then they were like really nice about it, so shout out to you. Then that night I took the first thing of Zoloft and I had to go to work the next day, which sucked because I remember I felt totally numb on the inside. It was really strange. Like, I was like shaky and like really nauseous and dizzy, and like I felt so sick, but like my mind just felt like numb, and like the entire like inside of my body, like I just felt numb. It's really strange. And so like while I felt sick on the outside, I felt like oddly like numb and like wasn't anxious. Like I tried to be anxious, but it like wouldn't happen. It was really weird. But because I was like sick, I had to leave work early, and that totally crushed me because I don't like leaving work early. So I remember that whole weekend, it was one of our busier weekends at work, and I like lost my appetite, but I like still had to force myself to eat, if that makes sense. Then then a few days later I saw that, okay, that all continued for a few days, and I would be sick, I had no appetite, and I would be like tired, and I would like sleep like way more than I would. And then I noticed that like the panicking and like my like anxious feelings would go away, or if they would come back, they'd be like way more toned down. But I kept feeling more and more and more depressed. So I talked to the doctor, my psychiatrist, about that when I finally went to go see him, and he was really sweet and really awesome, and he gave me another medicine, which is Enderol. So propranolol, if you were wondering. So they're like the same name. I got 20 milligrams of that, and I think that's when he didn't up my dosage yet for the Zoloft. So I started taking that, and that like is a beta blocker, so it helps like slow down your heart rate a little bit. So then, that little thing was fine. And then I went back to the psychiatrist, 2 weeks after, I went back to the regular doctor, and I was like, I feel better, but I feel like more depressed now. And she said that that's something we should just focus with on like the psychiatrist. So everything was fine and dandy. Well, except for like feeling depressed. So, but like there was no anxiety, there was no panicking, so life was like honestly starting to like get a little bit better, except not really because I was depressed. So, flash forward a few months, and I'm like raised up to 75 milligrams of Zoloft now, and it's like not really working out that well. Like, there's no anxiety, there's no panic, but like I'm really depressed, like getting pretty suicidal, right? Like having suicidal thoughts. And when I'm talking about this, I'm like not trying to like make fun of the subject, because it's like a very serious subject. But I don't know how else to talk about it other than like just briefly just briefly talk about it, and then like go on and be like more lighthearted about something. So I'm not trying to like make fun of it because it's very serious, but yeah. So I was having a lot of suicidal thoughts, and was honestly terrifying because like I never knew how to deal with them because I never had them, or if I ever did, it was easy to brush them off and be like, oh no, that's not okay. But like the thing is, I knew when I needed serious help, like getting my like medicine switched up and starting to see like a therapist weekly. I knew I needed that kind of help when the suicidal thoughts stopped sounding like a bad idea. When it seemed more of like the solution to a problem rather than just a thought that you could brush off. When they started like when the thoughts started sounding like a good idea, and like when I was wholeheartedly convinced that like everything would be fine without me, that's when I started getting help. Because even though I was in that mindset, there was something where I couldn't bring myself to do it, if that makes any sense. So now we're in like October of this whole year. No, September, October. So I think part of why I was having like a reaction, or why I was like so stuck in that mindset, was because I wasn't in a good place, like mentally or like emotionally. And second, like the Zoloft stopped working. So I just honestly, it was just hard. Like, all this progress that I made was trying to feel better just stopped, and I was back at where I started. So that sucked. And so I remember I went to the doctor, like the psychiatrist, and I was like, I want to switch to something else. And I told him everything, and he's like, yeah, we're going to put you on this medicine. So I got put on Effexor, and I've been on that since like September, and that has helped so much. And then he gave me Xanax because my panic attacks and like anxiety were coming back, and I was like having trouble sleeping. So we switched up everything, and that's been working out great. And it's been a while, like since September, since that all happened. So that's kind of like it with my antidepressants. And then around that time, I did start seeing my therapist too, and I go to my therapist once a week. And it's my favorite time of the week, because it's, anyone that follows me on Snapchat knows that or Twitter, I tweet about the weekly commute to, the city by my house, or that's kind of far from me, but I'll use the city's location filters on Snapchat, and I'll tweet about my weekly commute and how I really look forward to it. It's because I really like going to therapy, and I really like talking to my therapist. So yeah, when I first started therapy, it was really, really weird. I didn't know what to expect, because honestly, the only knowledge I had about therapy was from what I would see on Frasier, and that's not the most accurate thing to go off of. So the first few sessions were the intake sessions, where they get to know you and your background, and then you start focusing on your action plans and your goals. So I go there, yeah, so it's my favorite time of the week, and it's the best hour of my week, honestly. It's so much fun, and you get everything off your chest, and there was only a couple times where I left feeling really upset, but that's because we would just talk about some heavy subjects, and yeah. So I don't know if you heard that, but my tummy just grumbled because I'm hungry, but so, when I would ask for help, which is what we're going to start talking about now. I know this video is really long, I'm sorry about it, but I hope you I hope this is useful and helpful information. So when I didn't know how to go about getting help for people, from people and talking about it, I would just kind of write about it, and I would just kind of keep it somewhere hidden where my family couldn't get to it, because I don't want anyone to read it, my personal stuff, if I'm not ready to share it. There were some friends that I could confide in, and I would confide in them a lot and be like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I feel like this, and they would honestly, they saved me. So thank you, friends. And when I would feel ready, I would tell, I could confide in some people. But one thing that I didn't want to happen is I didn't want people to look at me differently, which is inevitable. People will look at you differently no matter what. And that's a different topic for a different day, because I have a rant about that. And then people would either, like, people that were unsupportive I just wouldn't talk to them anymore. I could be like, oh yeah, everything's great, and then just not really engage it. But one thing I didn't want to happen was, I think when you're going through stuff like this, it's easy for that to be like the one thing you like fixate yourself on, which is fine. It's like a huge thing. Like, you're processing this like huge life change. Like, your moods are way different and your thoughts are way different, and if you throw in antidepressants, like, you're busy, like, your mind's like being rewired and you don't know how to handle it. So it's easy for that to be the first thing and the only thing you want to talk about. But it's not the sole character trait. Like, that's not who you are. Like, it's part of you, it's something you deal with, but it's not who you are. Like, there's like such a huge stigma on like people with mental health issues, and there shouldn't be, because it's such a common thing. A lot of people deal with it, whether they know it or not, whether they know someone that deals with it or not. And it's easy to like look at the stereotypes and be like, oh, they're just crazy, they're insane, like, what the heck, like, why are you like this, why did you choose to be like this? That's not how it goes. It's not at all how that works. Like, I can almost guarantee that any of my friends or family that has depression or anxiety, like, they didn't want it. They did not wake up one day and be like, I'm gonna be depressed today, I'm gonna suffer from, crippling anxiety, and I'm gonna have a panic attack because I feel like it. I want this. Like, nobody wants it. Okay. Before this video turns into like a huge rant, which I'll save for a different day, just know that there's so many like ways to get help nowadays, whether it's like confiding in someone you trust or talking about it to like either a school counselor or like even going to like a doctor or a psychiatrist or a therapist. There's so many ways for you to get help nowadays. There's so many like online blogs and forums about this kind of stuff, and there's just so many ways for you to like get help and so many different creative outlets for you to feel better about it, so you don't have to deal with this alone. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, for anyone who didn't know that, and I think that more people should be aware of that and know that we should kind of use this month to kickstart like ending that stigma on mental health and anxiety and depression and like bipolar and schizophrenia and different stuff like that. I'm mainly talk about depression, anxiety, and panic because that's what I've personally dealt with. But there's any mental health disorder, there shouldn't be a stigma on it because a lot of them are way more common than you think, and people that deal with it, whether you know it or not, whether you realize it or not. So there's all of that. And again, I'm starting to get really ranty now, so I'm going to end this video here, but I think that we should just end the stigma on mental health because there shouldn't be one. And then you shouldn't have to deal with this stuff alone. Like, you shouldn't be in such a terrible mental state where you feel like you have to deal with it alone, because you shouldn't. It's not something you can deal with alone. You can't just bring yourself from the lowest of your lows by yourself. Well, maybe some people can, and props to you, but I can't do it. And I wish I could, but I can't, so that's why I'm making this video. I hope that this helped some of you. I hope that at least you were maybe a little bit more educated now on these kind of topics. Some of you might know my story now, and I hope that you were at least mildly entertained. So I will see you guys later for another episode of Mental Health Monday, or maybe a different video throughout the week. So I will see you guys soon, and until then, stay safe, stay awesome, and end the stigma. Bye.